WrestleMania 20, where it all begins again. Well, we finally made it to the 20s, basically the era where I started watching wrestling. This was where it all begins again. They came back to Madison Square Garden, the last WrestleMania in Madison Square Garden. I remembered at the time, I was younger. I was 15 when WrestleMania 30 hit, and I was like, it's in New Orleans. I would have loved it if they went back to Madison Square Garden. But now, as an adult, I can see why they went to bigger venues, because at this point WrestleMania was evolving and it needed to be big, grand. And Madison Square Garden, as amazing as that arena is and as legendary as it is, it's really small. So this being the final time that they're at Madison Square Garden, there was rumors they were supposed to do it in 2020 when the world shut down, and then they were gonna slowly come back and they were gonna do MSG WrestleMania in the summer. They unfortunately didn't do that. For this to be the final WrestleMania in the Garden, I was satisfied. Now, I will be the first to admit that there wasn't a lot of good matches necessarily. There was a lot of filler, and this show really tried to cram in as many talent as possible. And a lot of people are gonna say that made it a bad show. This was a long show, I will say that, but they kind of needed a long show for this show, for it being 20 years. Some people have even called this show overrated because of the match quality, but sometimes entertainment value overshadows that. If there was one thing to really complain about this show, it was the disappointing dream match that we'll get to later on the show. And if I'm being honest, that is what really bunked down some points for this show. We open with the Choir Boys of Harlem singing our national anthem. Then we have a video package showcasing WrestleMania in the Garden and all the matches that we're going to see. And then we have the closing segment of where it all begins again with Vince McMahon and Shane McMahon standing together and them holding Shane McMahon's baby. I would have thought that Vince McMahon would have retired and give the company to Shane, and that would have been a perfect send-off to Vince. But Vince McMahon just did not know how to retire, and man, this guy, oof, he had it rough. Trust me, I would have been curious what Shane McMahon's ruthless aggression era would have looked like. It could have been good. I think around 2006 and 2007 is when it started really dying down. You can see it. But anyways, let's just kick it off with the wrestling. Big Show versus John Cena for the United States Championship. This was okay for what it was. Up to this point, John Cena has already given the FU to Big Show countless times. It would have been more epic if this was the first time John Cena hits the FU on the Big Show. And it would have been a cool callback to Hogan and Andre the Giant at WrestleMania 3. I was very entertained, and I like that John Cena had to cheat his way to beat the Big Show because it's a giant. He had to use a chain. This was around the time where they were really trying so hard to make Big Show feel like a giant again, but the damage had already been done. They made him too much of a goofball up to this point, even though last year he was the WWE champion competing with Brock Lesnar for that title. For him putting over John Cena, I was satisfied, and this was John Cena's debut to WrestleMania. Next match, we had RVD and Booker T versus Garrison Cade and Mark Jindrak versus the Dudley Boys versus Rene Dupree and Ron Conway, aka La Resistance. And I was not really happy with this match. It was just whatever. If it was up to me, I would have just done RVD and Booker T versus the Dudley Boys. Or hell, do RVD and Booker T versus Dudley Boys versus La Resistance. Maybe too many triple threats would have killed it. I get it. But this was just their way of throwing in some tag teams in there. And plus, how do you not have RVD and Booker T on this show? Even though they were basically put together after Triple H buried them, They had a solid moment, so good moment for RVD and Booker T. Too bad their theme song sucked. So fine. Up to this point, throughout the night, they have a bunch of random segments. There's a part where Jesse Ventura confronts Donald Trump, and then around here is where we had Jonathan Coachman walking backstage. He finds Mean Gene Okerlund and Bobby the Brain Heenan. It looked like they had just gotten laid. We thought it was with each other. Then we find out that they're with Fabulous Moolah and Mae Young. Okay. Onto the wrestling yet again. Chris Jericho versus Christian. And for a good chunk of the show, this was the match of the night for me. This was a really good match. The story was there of Christian being jealous of Chris Jericho's love and affection for Trish Stratus, how it's been watering him down. He was able to put down Trish Stratus, but really his ego was just running to the side because this match, as good as it was, I mean, you could tell these guys have good chemistry. Two Canadians. They were a really good tag team. Now they're enemies at this WrestleMania. You know, the big twist of Trish Stratus turning on Chris Jericho, who really loved her, and then he makes out with Christian at the end. This was a good way of having a good match and then continuing the story moving forward, because it was like, what are you going to do with them afterwards? So I was really satisfied with this match. I can't really complain. Then we had The Rock and Sock Connection versus Evolution. And really they wanted to do Mick Foley versus Randy Orton. We do end up getting that in Backlash. This match was good. It was a good way to have The Rock on the show get involved. It's kind of crazy that The Rock is the fourth match on a massive card in Madison Square Garden at WrestleMania. You would never imagine that The Rock would be this far down on the card, but you know what? He was on the card. He put over Evolution. My favorite spot was when The Rock is throwing his punches to Ric Flair and then he mocks the Ric Flair walk. That was awesome. It was pure entertainment, but at the end they did the right call of Randy Orton, RKO, and Mick Foley, pinning him 1, 2, 3. As disappointing as The Rock and Mick Foley are, they get the standing ovation, and it was a great way to put over the new talent, and I'm glad that Rock and Foley were eligible to put over guys like Randy Orton, Batista, the future of the company, and then Ric Flair, who was already established up to this point. And thankfully, Ric Flair was participating in this match, because if he wasn't, he would have been all over the main event, interfering like crazy. So thank goodness for that. Now here's where I'm very excited, because we get to take a break from reviewing WrestleMania matches, and then we look back at the WWE Hall of Fame class of 2004, and this Hall of Fame was stacked. Up to this point, we took a break from doing Hall of Fames. The first Hall of Famer of all time was in 1993, Andre the Giant. After his unfortunate passing, they wanted to give him a tribute, so they put him in the Hall of Fame. We had some other Hall of Fames, like class of 94, 95, maybe 96, I'm not too sure. But we took a big break from it, and how fitting was it to bring it back at WrestleMania 20, the Hall of Fame inductions. And this induction ceremony was really good, and this class was pretty stacked, even though it was mainly like a lot of like the legends from the 80s that not a lot of people knew about at this point, but I knew of them because I've been watching the WrestleManias up to this point. Let's just read the class. From the celebrity wing, we had P. Rose. It was kind of weird to have him be the first ever celebrity. If I had it my way, it would have been Muhammad Ali. But all right, fine. I do think P. Rose deserved it. Maybe not being the first celebrity wing, and plus he got booed at this WrestleMania. But anyways, let's look at the full class of Hall of Famers. We had Big John Studd, Don Morocco, Greg the Hammer Valentine, Harley Race, Jesse Ventura, Junkyard Dog, Sergeant Slaughter, Superstar Billy Graham, Tito Santana, and headliner Bobby the Brain Heenan. If there was any manager that deserved to headline, it was Bobby the Brain Heenan. Rightfully deserved. All of these are legends in their own way. I was pretty happy with this class. If you guys haven't seen the Bobby the Brain Heenan speech giving tribute to Gorilla Monsoon, it was beautifully done. One of the best speeches in Hall of Fame history. Back to the wrestling. If you want to call this next match a wrestling match, it was pure entertainment for me. Um, Tori Wilson and Sable versus Stacy Keibler and Miss Jackie in a Playboy evening gown tag team match. This was just pure entertainment for the guys, at least. Wasn't really seen as wrestling. The two hottest chicks from SmackDown, the two hottest chicks from Raw having a match. Can't really get mad. I mean, this was entertaining for a guy, and I know this wouldn't fly by today, but it flew by in 2004, so I can't really get mad. Then we had a cruiserweight championship opener, and this had, and let me get the names down, Chavo Guerrero, the cruiserweight champion, defending his title against Aquino, Billy Kidman, who had a weird theme song. It was a good song, but it didn't fit him. Funaki, Jamie Noble, Nuncio, Rey Mysterio, Shannon Moore, Tajiri, and Ultimo Dragon. It was a nice way of showcasing different cruiserweights. If it was up to me, you know what I would have done? I would have done a ladder match, um, just with the best cruiserweights you got, and then Chavo still going over. But for what it was, I was very entertained. They had only 10 minutes, and they did the best they could with 10 minutes. It was entertaining. I would have wished that it was like a fatal four way, like I said, or a ladder match, something else. Six pack challenge. Because some of these guys didn't really need to be here. Aquino didn't do much. Nuncio didn't do much. Well, basically nobody here did much, but I would have just kept the big names in this match if I'm making sense. Then we get to the match that truly hurt the show. If this match was good, WrestleMania 20 would have gone down as an A show, but unfortunately, this match drags it down, and it sucks because this was the best built match up to this point. Brock Lesnar versus Goldberg with special guest referee Stone Cold Steve Austin. Two bulls just going at it. It was the ultimate dream match to many people, and it was, a perfectly well built match. Like, Goldberg was the favorite to win the Royal Rumble. He was starting at number 30. Brock Lesnar, like, who gives a crap about Goldberg? No one cares about Goldberg. He screws him over at the Rumble. Then Stone Cold gives Goldberg a ticket to No Way Out 2004. Goldberg costs Brock Lesnar the WWE Championship, and Brock Lesnar just wants to finish off Goldberg, and this was just well built. And then you had Stone Cold as the referee, because there's no way these guys would have been able to be good fighting each other with just a regular referee. You needed Stone Cold, the badass, there to kind of control the chaos. And unfortunately, this is not what we got. Instead, we just had two guys doing rest holds. They have a stare down. It took maybe 3 minutes for them to throw a punch, and then word got around that Brock Lesnar and Goldberg were leaving. So already the crowd was already disappointed that both men were leaving. You sold out chants. They really didn't care. They hit their spears, they hit their moves, but no one really cared. And Goldberg and Brock Lesnar didn't care because they were already getting paid anyway. So they just did what they wanted to. And Goldberg gets the victory. Brock Lesnar gives the middle fingers to the crowd. Stone Cold stuns Brock Lesnar, sending him out. As Stone Cold and Goldberg are celebrating, they share a beer, and in typical Stone Cold fashion, gives Goldberg the stunner, and it ends with Stone Cold standing tall. The referee was the one that looked more badass than anybody, and this was basically Vince McMahon giving the FU to Brock Lesnar and Goldberg for leaving. Very unfortunate, because this had potential of being one of the best matches of all time, and unfortunately, it wasn't. Then we have another Fatal 4-Way Tag Team match, but this time for the WWE Tag Team Championships. Too Cool, World's Greatest Tag Team, Basham Brothers, and the APA. These are more crisp tag teams, and these were actual tag teams, not a bunch of guys put together. So this one was slightly better, and it was shorter. So they kind of learned from the first tag team match, all of these guys, so then they did the best they could. I would have liked to have seen the world's greatest tag team get the victory. Yes, they won last year, but Too Cool and Rikishi didn't do much of anything after this, so it was kind of goofy on their part. And really, the only reason why they won is just so they can have their dance break at the end. But for the 6 minutes that they got, I was entertained. Women's Championship match: Hair versus Title, Victoria versus Molly Holly. Now, the word going around that this match was actually going to be cut out of the show, which would have been kind of disrespectful, not because, like, oh, women's rights and everything, because they were willing to cram as many matches here as possible, and they were willing to cram every belt they had on this show, and they were going to cut out the women's belt. So that would have been very disrespectful. But if you think about it, Victoria and Molly Holly isn't really a match that was good, and you never thought that this match was going to be good. So what did they do? They put a stipulation which Molly Holly has thought of. She basically said, why don't I put my hair on the line? That way people are going to be invested in this match. And man, if that is true, Molly Holly, all respect to you, because you were willing to put your hair on the line just to be on WrestleMania. That is commitment, and I respect her for that. And Victoria, this was my favorite era of Victoria, and she has probably my favorite female theme song of all time. I ain't the lady to mess with. Go, go, go. And of course, my favorite part was after the match where Molly Holly realized she lost. She tries to run away. Victoria catches her, and then they tie her up to the barber chair, and then they shave her head. Great moment. Again, this wasn't really about the wrestling. This was about the moment. What is about wrestling is Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle for the WWE Championship. So at this point, Eddie Guerrero won the WWE Championship. Brock was going to fight Goldberg. Who was Eddie Guerrero going to fight? Why don't we put him with Kurt Angle? And up to this point, the SmackDown 6 were evolving, and then they were going to move on to other stuff. There were more headliners now up to this point. And nobody ever talks about Eddie and Kurt Angle and their in-ring chemistry up to this match. People always talked about the Angle Benoit matches, the Ray and Eddie matches. This was the one time where people started paying attention to Eddie Guerrero and Kurt Angle in the ring. They do have a lot of matches in 2004. It was kind of like when they had nothing to do, they just put them together in 2004. But for the first match that they had that was in a major stage, which is this one, I was satisfied. And this match was really good. Great technical wrestling. Probably my favorite Kurt Angle outfit of all time. And then Eddie Guerrero having a WWE Championship match. It hit close to home because it was a Latino walking into WWE WrestleMania as your champion. And, you can't really get mad about that, especially for me being a Latino. Very satisfying match. And then the finale was perfect with Kurt Angle putting Eddie Guerrero in the ankle lock. He had untied his shoe earlier, or his boot. He had untied his boot earlier, and then Eddie Guerrero throws Kurt Angle to the side. Angle realizes that he only has his boot. Kurt Angle gets rolled up by Eddie. 1, 2, 3, and Eddie Guerrero is still your WWE champion. Great match. Fantastic match. I was thoroughly entertained by this. I think around this point of the show, Vince McMahon comes out and thanks everybody for, being around for 20 years and being loyal fans through everything. Cool moment. I guess I know a lot of people don't really talk about Vince McMahon in a positive way nowadays, or even before all the drama, people were getting sick and tired of Vince McMahon. This was definitely a start to that, but fine. Anyways, let's just move on to more positive stuff. The semi-main event, Undertaker, the Dead Man versus Kane. And this feud was really, really good. I like that Kane has gone mad. He removed his mask. He just went crazy, tearing down the entire Raw roster, going just balls to the walls crazy. And then Survivor Series, it was Vince McMahon versus The Undertaker. Kane helps Vince win. He buries The Undertaker. And basically we thought that was the end for the Undertaker. Yeah, right. We all knew where this was going. The dead man was on his way, and I like that Kane practically carried the entire feud by himself. We only had vignettes of the Undertaker teasing that the dead man was coming, and then finally we get to this match. Kane comes out. First of all, this theme song that Kane had, which came out in the Punisher. Side note: there was a lot of songs that um WWE used from the Punisher soundtrack in 2004. The theme song even was "Step Up," the closing song to the Punisher movie. Um, but anyways, Kane comes out. He is waiting for the Undertaker, and then we have like all these demons, all these druids holding fire flames. And just when you think that the Undertaker was coming out, you hear, "Oh yeah!" Paul Bearer comes out, and basically, if that wasn't a sign that the Undertaker as the Dead Man was coming back, then I don't know what is, because Paul Bearer adding to this was gold. I was very happy to see Paul Bearer back, one of the greatest managers of all time. Undertaker comes out to his classic theme song. He still is dressed like the American Badass, which I was like, why is he still dressed like the American Badass? But it made sense because he had been buried as the American Badass, so he was slowly transitioning back into the Dead Man. So I was very cool with this. And then the match happens. The bell rings. Undertaker's just standing there. Kane is just like confused to see Undertaker there because he had buried him. He just touches him, and then Undertaker just throws in all these punches. Undertaker basically beats up Kane for the whole match, and then gets the tombstone 1, 2, 3. This match did not need to be long. I was very happy with the match that we got. We have already seen Undertaker and Kane have many matches, a lot of bad ones. The only good one really up to this point was WrestleMania 14. So for this to be a squash match, I can't really get mad at it. And it was very good because this is where they started pushing the streak into your head. They referenced that Undertaker was 12-0 up to this point, so this was leading to the eventual streak. And the 20s, as far as WrestleMania goes, this was like my era of watching professional wrestling. So seeing this made me happy, and moving forward, The Undertaker just has some of the best matches of his entire career moving forward. So I'm very excited to talk about those when we get to them. But now let's talk about the main event. Triple H versus Shawn Michaels versus Chris Benoit in a triple threat match for the World Heavyweight Championship. And man, this match was built perfectly. Shawn Michaels and Triple H had a match on Raw, which ended in a no contest. Then we had the last man standing, where both men didn't make the count. It ended in a draw. So we're thinking, oh, great, this is going to just culminate at WrestleMania. Am I right? Well, this is what broke the way we saw the Royal Rumble and two belts, because everybody would think that, okay, you're the Royal Rumble winner, you have to compete for whatever world title is on your brand. So I'm thinking that's where they were going, but no. Chris Benoit makes a twist, and then he says, I'm the Royal Rumble winner. I can pick whatever world title I want. It doesn't say in the book that I have to fight for the WWE Championship. I want to win that belt because I'm tired of Triple H's reign of terror. But Shawn Michaels isn't finished with Triple H. He feels he should be the world champion. And the feud was just gold. Shawn Michaels steals Benoit's spot by Sweet Chin musicking him, signing the contract himself. This made it a triple threat match. Shawn Michaels has beef with Triple H. Benoit has beef with Triple H. Really, Shawn Michaels' purpose of this match is make it a great match. I think they realized that Shawn Michaels is just a 5-star machine, so why not have him in this match? Plus, he deserves it. He's one of the greatest of all time. The match starts, and man, when I tell you this is the greatest triple threat match of all time, I ain't lying. This was just pure gold. You have people bleeding like crazy, particularly Shawn Michaels. There's like a part where Benoit gets thrown to the announce table by DX. But to me, the finale, like go back and watch this match. This is just awesome to watch. But the match ends with Shawn Michaels about to hit Chris Benoit with the sweet chin music. Benoit reverses him, throws him out of the ring. Triple H is about to hit the pedigree on Benoit. Benoit counters it into the label lock. Triple H runs to the ropes. He rolls him over and puts him in the middle and still holds the label lock. Triple H has no choice but to tap out, and Chris Benoit is your new world champion. Phenomenal match and phenomenal moment. It is just very unfortunate that we are not allowed to really enjoy this moment given the circumstances that happened in 2007. They even cut out where Nancy and Benoit's kids are in the ring. They completely erased that from history, rightfully so, because if we were to watch that, it would have been more tough to really sit through given the circumstances. To this day, it's been really hard to separate Benoit the wrestler with Benoit the guy who did what he did. I was still very happy with the match. I mean, I can still watch it and say this is the greatest triple threat match of all time. But it is just unfortunate that we can't really see it the same. And it sucks, unfortunately. With that said, this show was very enjoyable. I know a lot of people don't like this show because it tries to cram everybody in the show. I do give it respect for trying to add every belt. This is when I think they realized it's time to cut down some belts. I really enjoyed this show. I was very entertained. It was cool to see all these guys that I grew up watching. The only true negative that I would have to say, other than the fact that they just try to cram everybody on the show, was Brock Lesnar and Goldberg. If this match was good, nobody would have ever been complaining about WrestleMania 20. It does bring it down by a lot because this show would have been like an A minus type of show, but the Brock Goldberg match really brings it down, and that is why I'm giving this show a B minus. I could still watch it, still be entertained. I just really think that I do really miss when we only had a limited amount of belts. I feel like what could have helped a lot in this era is have the women's division be in one show and then the tag team division on another. That maybe would have helped out the show by a lot. But it doesn't take away from my entertainment. I was very satisfied with what I watched here. But now we're going to move on to WrestleMania 21. And I'm super excited to talk about that one because I have some nostalgia stories regarding WrestleMania 21. So stay tuned for that. Anyways, take care, everybody. I'll see you all later.